Have you ever met someone who seemed different? A woman who, despite being young, carries herself with an ancient wisdom. Someone who sees through the superficial layers of modern life as if she's lived 1,000 lifetimes. Carl Jung called them old souls, individuals born with a consciousness that doesn't match their biological age. But here's what's unsettling. These women are quietly vanishing from our society, not physically but spiritually. They're withdrawing, hiding, retreating into the shadows. And the question we need to ask is why? What is it about our modern world that's pushing these deeply sensitive, profoundly conscious women into isolation? By the end of this video, you'll understand the psychology behind old soul women, why they're disappearing, and what Jung's theories reveal about this phenomenon. More importantly, if you're an old soul woman yourself, you'll finally understand why you've always felt like you don't belong. Let's dive deep. Chapter 1. Who are old soul women? Before we explore why old soul women are disappearing, we need to understand who they are. Carl Jung never used the term old soul explicitly, but his concept of individuation and the collective unconscious perfectly describes these individuals. The Jungian definition. According to Jung, some people are born with a deeper connection to the collective unconscious, that vast reservoir of human experiences, archetypes, and wisdom accumulated over millennia. Old soul women don't just access this knowledge, they embody it. Think about it this way. Most people live on the surface of consciousness. They're concerned with the immediate, the material, the socially acceptable. But old soul women? They're diving into the depths even when they don't mean to. 7 unmistakable signs of an old soul woman. First, they've always felt out of place. Even as children, they couldn't relate to their peers. While other kids were playing games, these girls were contemplating life's bigger questions. They were the ones asking, why do we exist? At age 7. Second, they have an innate understanding of human nature. Old soul women can read people instantly, not because they're judgmental, but because they see patterns, archetypal patterns that Jung described. They recognize the shadow, the persona, the anima and animus in others before those people recognize it in themselves. Third, they're drawn to solitude not out of loneliness but necessity. Social interaction drains them because they process everything on a much deeper level. A casual conversation about the weather becomes an existential meditation on human disconnection from nature. Fourth, they experience what Jung called cosmic homesickness, and there's a persistent feeling of not belonging to this time, this place, this superficial culture. It's not depression, and it's displacement. They're searching for a depth that modern society has systematically eliminated. Fifth, they're unusually empathetic, often to the point of pain. Old soul women don't just understand others' emotions. They absorb them. Jung would say they have unusually thin boundaries between their personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. Sixth, they reject superficiality instinctively. Small talk feels like torture. Materialism seems absurd. Status games appear childish. They're not trying to be difficult. They genuinely cannot operate on that frequency. Seventh, they often experience what Jung called synchronicities with unusual frequency. Meaningful coincidences follow them. They dream prophetically. They intuitively know things they couldn't possibly know. Their connection to the deeper layers of reality is simply stronger. The archetypal feminine wisdom. Jung believed that old soul women often embody what he called the wise woman. Archetype, the crone, the sage, the oracle. This isn't about age. It's about consciousness. These women carry ancient feminine wisdom that our culture has systematically devalued and suppressed. In ancient societies, these women would have been priestesses, healers, advisors. Today, they're told they're too sensitive, overthinking everything, or need to lighten up. Now that you understand who old soul women are, let's explore why they're vanishing from society. Chapter 2. The Great Withdrawal. Something profound is happening. Old soul women are quietly removing themselves from mainstream society. Not dramatically, not violently, but steadily and deliberately. The statistical reality. Research shows that women who identify as highly sensitive persons, which significantly overlaps with old soul characteristics, and are increasingly reporting social isolation. Mental health data indicates rising rates of withdrawal, not due to depression, but due to what psychologists call self-protective distancing. These women aren't becoming hermits randomly. They're responding to something in the environment that's become incompatible with their nature. Why the withdrawal? The devaluation of depth. Modern society rewards speed over depth. We celebrate those who can skim the surface of everything while mastering nothing. We value the ability to network over the ability to connect. We praise productivity over contemplation. Jung warned about this. He said that as society becomes more collective, more focused on external achievement, individuals with deep inner lives would be increasingly marginalized. Old soul women simply cannot thrive in this environment. Their entire operating system runs on depth, meaning, and authentic connection. When forced to exist in superficial spaces, they don't adapt, they wither. The exhaustion of empathy. We live in a world saturated with suffering and injustice, all streaming directly into our consciousness through screens 24/7 for old soul women who feel everything intensely. This creates unbearable empathic overload. Jung spoke of the wounded healer archetype, someone who understands suffering because they've experienced it deeply. But there's a limit. When the world's pain becomes omnipresent, when there's no respite, even healers must retreat to survive. Old soul women are withdrawing because they're being overwhelmed by the collective suffering they cannot help but feel. The punishment of authenticity. Our culture demands performance. We're expected to curate perfect personas, to brand ourselves, to maintain consistent content. Media has turned human interaction into a theater of the artificial. For old soul women, this is spiritual death. They cannot perform authenticity, they can only be authentic. And when authenticity itself becomes performative, they have nowhere to go but inward. The acceleration trap. Everything is faster now. Communication is instant. Decisions must be immediate. Productivity must be constant. There's no time for reflection, for silence, for the slow unfolding of wisdom. Jung's process of individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires time, solitude, and deep introspection. Modern life systematically prevents these conditions. Old soul women need slowness the way plants need sunlight. Deprived of it, they cannot grow. So they withdraw to create the conditions their souls require. Where are they going? They're not leaving physically, but psychologically. They're limiting social media to bare minimum, choosing radical minimalism over consumerism, moving to smaller communities or rural areas, creating intimate circles of 2 to 3 deep friendships instead of large networks, pursuing work that allows autonomy and depth over status and income, investing in spiritual practices, nature connection, and creative expression, simply saying no to the constant demands of modern life. Jung called this voluntary simplicity, not poverty, but choosing the essential over the excessive. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom. Old soul women are recognizing that the game is rigged against their nature, and they're refusing to play. But there's a cost to this withdrawal, both for them and for society. Let's explore that now. Chapter 3. The Cost of Disappearance. When old soul women withdraw from society, everyone loses. But the losses aren't equal, and they're not always obvious. What society loses? The loss of wisdom keepers, Throughout history, old soul women served as the conscience of their communities. They were the ones who remembered what mattered, who could see through deception, who spoke uncomfortable truths with compassion. Jung believed that every society needs what he called the voice of the self. Individuals who can speak from the deep center of human experience, not just cultural conditioning. When old soul women disappear, society loses its moral and spiritual compass. We're left with influencers instead of sages, content instead of wisdom, noise instead of truth. The empathy deficit. Old soul women possess what Jung called feeling function at its highest development. They can bridge differences, understand paradoxes, and hold space for complexity. As they withdraw, our culture becomes more polarized, more black and white, more unable to hold nuance. We're seeing this play out in real time. The death of dialogue, the rise of tribal thinking, the inability to sit with ambiguity, the creativity void. Jung associated the feminine principle with creativity, imagination, and the unconscious. Old soul women connected deeply to these realms are natural innovators, not of technology, but of meaning, art, and new ways of being human. Their withdrawal means fewer voices speaking from the soul, fewer creations born from depth. Our culture becomes more derivative, more shallow, more focused on iterating the past rather than imagining new futures. What old soul women lose? The danger of isolation. Jung warned about the dangers of isolating from the collective. Yes, individuation requires solitude, but complete withdrawal can lead to what he called inflation, losing touch with shared human reality. Old soul women risk becoming so disconnected that they can no longer relate to anyone. Their wisdom becomes inaccessible, their insights untranslatable. They become, paradoxically, as disconnected as the superficial culture they're fleeing. The shadow of superiority. There's a real danger here that needs acknowledging. When you identify as an old soul, there's a temptation to feel superior. I'm deeper than everyone else. I see what they can't see. I'm more evolved. Jung would recognize this as the shadow, the unconscious pride that comes from feeling different. It's a trap. The moment you believe you're above the collective, you've lost the very wisdom you think you possess. True wisdom, as Jung knew, includes humility. It means recognizing that those who seem superficial may simply be expressing different aspects of the human experience, equally valid in their own way. The missed opportunity for integration. Jung's entire life work pointed toward integration, bringing together the conscious and unconscious, the individual and collective, the spiritual and material. When old soul women withdraw completely, they miss the opportunity to integrate their wisdom with the world. They keep their light hidden when it's needed most. The collective cost. Here's what's really at stake. We're at a critical moment in human history. We face crises that require wisdom, depth, empathy, and the ability to think long-term. Climate collapse, social fragmentation, meaning crisis, mental health epidemic. These aren't problems that can be solved with more technology or faster productivity. They require the exact qualities that old soul women naturally possess. Their disappearance isn't just sad, it's dangerous for all of us. But there's another side to this story. What if the withdrawal isn't permanent? What if it's strategic? Chapter 4, The Strategic Retreat. Jung understood something crucial. Sometimes you need to go backwards to go forward. Sometimes retreat is preparation for return. The cocoon phase. In Jungian psychology, there's a phase of development he called a regression in service of the ego. It sounds negative, but it's not. It means temporarily withdrawing from external demands to rebuild your inner foundation. Old soul women aren't disappearing forever. Many are in a cocoon phase, withdrawing to heal, to remember who they are beneath the layers of social conditioning, to gather strength. Jung saw this pattern in myths worldwide. The hero must descend into the underworld before emerging transformed. The shaman must experience ego death before gaining healing power. The seed must be buried in darkness before it can grow toward light. What happens in the retreat? Reconnection with the self. Jung's concept of the self, in the capital S, is the totality of who you are. Conscious and unconscious, personal and archetypal. Most people never encounter their true self because they're too busy performing their persona, the social mask. In retreat, old soul women drop the mask. They meet themselves, often for the first time since childhood. This meeting isn't always comfortable. It involves confronting your shadow, facing your wounds, accepting your gifts, but it's necessary. You cannot give to the world what you haven't claimed in yourself. Processing collective trauma. Old soul women don't just carry their personal wounds, they carry collective trauma, the accumulated pain of ancestors, the unresolved suffering of humanity, the grief of the earth itself. Jung believes some people are called to be carriers of collective wounds, not because they're weak, but because they're strong enough to process what others cannot face. The retreat allows this processing. Through dreams, through therapy, through creative expression, through simply sitting with the darkness until it transforms, developing discernment. One of the challenges old soul women face is absorbing everyone's emotions without discrimination. They feel everything, which becomes overwhelming. In retreat, they learn discernment. Jung's thinking, function balanced with their natural feeling function. They learn to distinguish between their feelings and others, between empathy and absorption, between compassion and codependence. This is crucial. You cannot help anyone if you're drowning in their pain. Cultivating inner authority. Society constantly tells old soul women that they're wrong. Too sensitive, too serious, too much. Over time, they begin to doubt themselves. In retreat, away from external voices, they reconnect with their inner authority. They remember that their sensitivity is strength. Their depth is gift. Their difference is necessary. Jung called this the union of opposites, learning to hold both your uniqueness and your common humanity. The pattern of return. History shows us that wisdom keepers always return. They retreat, they transform, and they come back not to fit in, but to serve from their authentic power. Think of the mystics who spent years in caves before teaching, the artists who disappeared from public view before creating their masterpieces, the leaders who went through wilderness periods before stepping into their calling. Jung himself retreated after his break with Freud, spending years exploring his unconscious before emerging with his most profound work. The retreat isn't escape. It's preparation, signs of readiness to re-engage. How do you know when the retreat phase is complete? Jung would say you'll feel these shifts. Your sensitivity feels like power, not vulnerability. You can hold your truth while allowing others theirs. You're no longer waiting for permission or validation. You feel called to share, not from need but from overflow. You've developed practices that sustain your energy. You can engage without losing yourself. When these are in place, the old soul woman is ready to return, not as she was, but as she's becoming. But return to what? The world that pushed you away hasn't fundamentally changed. This brings us to the most important question. How can old soul women exist authentically in an inauthentic world? Chapter 5. The Path of Re-Engagement. Jung never advocated for permanent withdrawal. His entire philosophy centered on engagement, with yourself, with others, with life. But conscious, intentional engagement, not mindless conformity. So how can old soul women re-engage with society without losing themselves? Creating sacred boundaries. The sacred no. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. For old soul women, this means becoming conscious of where they say yes when they mean no. Sacred boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't keep everyone out. They let the right things in. This means saying no to social obligations that drain you, creating time blocks for solitude as non-negotiable, choosing depth conversations over surface networking, protecting your energy like the precious resource it is. The world will call you selfish. Jung would call you self-aware. The right-sized life. Not everyone needs to live large. Old soul women thrive in what I call right-sized lives and scale to their actual needs and nature, not society's expectations. This might mean earning less money but having more time, living in smaller spaces in places that nurture your soul, having fewer friends but deeper connections, doing work that matters to you, even if it's not impressive to others. Jung practiced this himself. He built a tower at Bollingen where he could retreat, work with his hands, think deeply. He understood that the soul needs different conditions than the ego. Finding your tribe. The quality over quantity principle. Old soul women don't need many friends. They need the right friends. Jung spoke of elective affinities, those rare people with whom soul recognition happens. These connections are characterized by immediate depth without small talk, comfort in silence as much as conversation, mutual respect for each other's solitude, no need for constant contact to maintain connection, ability to pick up where you left off even after long gaps. One or two of these relationships provide more nourishment than 100 superficial connections. Online communities done consciously. While social media can be toxic, it has also enabled old soul women to find each other across geographic boundaries. The key is using it consciously, not compulsively. Jung would approve of using technology as a tool, not a master. Join specific groups, have meaningful exchanges, then log off. Don't scroll, don't compare, don't perform. Engaging through your gifts. The individuated contribution. Jung believed that each person who completes individuation and becoming fully themselves automatically serves the collective, not by trying to help everyone, but by embodying their unique truth. For old soul women, this means asking, what is mine to do? Not what should I do? Not what would be most successful, but what is mine? What emerges from my unique nature, wounds, and gifts? This might be creating art that speaks to the soul, teaching or mentoring from lived wisdom, writing that articulates what others feel but can't express, healing work that addresses root causes, not symptoms, building communities around depth and authenticity, simply living so genuinely that you give others permission to do the same. The wounded healer returns. Jung's archetype of the wounded healer is perfect for old soul women. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's your qualification. Your struggles aren't setbacks, they're your curriculum. The wounds you've healed in yourself become your medicine for others, not by preaching but by presence, not by fixing but by witnessing, not by having all answers but by honoring all questions. Practicing sustainable engagement. The rhythm of engagement and retreat. This is key. Re-engagement doesn't mean constant presence. It means developing a rhythm. Periods of engagement balanced with periods of retreat. Think of the moon phases Jung studied so deeply, waxing and waning. Both necessary, both natural. You might engage intensely for short periods, then withdraw to replenish. Have people seasons and hermit seasons. Offer your gifts in concentrated doses rather than spreading yourself thin. Honor your cyclical nature rather than forcing linear consistency. The spiritual practices that sustain. Jung emphasized the importance of what he called active imagination, practices that connect you to the unconscious and replenish your soul. For old soul women, this might include daily solitude, even if brief, journaling, especially recording dreams, time in nature as spiritual practice, creative expression without audience, meditation or contemplation, reading wisdom literature that nourishes you, body practices that ground you in the present. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. They're how you maintain your connection to depth in a shallow world. The path of re-engagement isn't easy. It requires constant navigation between your needs and the world's demands. But it's possible, and it's necessary. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't need you to be like everyone else. It needs you to be exactly who you are. Chapter 6, The Collective Awakening. Let me share something profound that's happening right now. Jung predicted that humanity would face a crisis of meaning in the modern age. He said that as we became more technologically advanced, we would become more spiritually impoverished. And he was right. But he also believed that crises precipitate transformations, that breakdowns precede breakthroughs, that the darkest hour comes before the dawn. We're in that dark hour now, and old soul women are not disappearing, they're preparing. The rising feminine consciousness. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious as containing both masculine and feminine principles. For millennia, masculine principles dominated logic, hierarchy, conquest, separation. We're now witnessing what Jung anticipated, the return of the feminine principle, not women over men, but the rebalancing of consciousness itself, the qualities old soul women embody: empathy, intuition, interconnection, emotional intelligence, reverence for life. These are exactly what humanity needs to survive our current crises. Your withdrawal wasn't weakness. It was preparation for this moment. The new paradigm. Old soul women are quietly building a new paradigm. Alternative economics choosing gift economies, cooperative models valuing care work, rejecting exploitation, authentic community, creating spaces for vulnerability, depth, and real connection rather than networking and transaction. Holistic healing, addressing root causes in body, mind, and spirit rather than just suppressing symptoms. Regenerative living, honoring the earth, living seasonally, questioning consumption, embracing simplicity. Depth culture, valuing wisdom over information, presence over productivity, being overdoing. These aren't just personal choices. They're the seeds of cultural transformation, your role in the awakening. If you're an old soul woman, you're not broken. You're not too sensitive. You're not wrong. You're a bridge between the old world and the new, between the surface and the depths, between ego and soul, between separation and connection. Jung would tell you, the very things that make you feel alien in this world are the things this world most desperately needs. Your task isn't to fit in. It's to stay true and trust that in doing so, you're serving something larger than yourself. Not every old soul woman will hear this. Some are still too wounded. Some aren't ready. Some have different timing. But if you're hearing this now, if something in you is stirring, if you're feeling a pull to emerge from hiding, that's not random. That's synchronicity. That's the self-calling. Jung believed that when you're aligned with your deep nature, the universe conspires to support you. Doors open. Helpers appear. Resources emerge. Seemingly magical coincidences guide your path. This isn't wishful thinking. It's how reality works when you're in alignment with your soul's purpose. So the invitation is this. Consider that your disappearance was never meant to be permanent. Consider that you withdrew to remember something. Consider that maybe, just maybe, you're ready to return, not to the old games, not to the superficial world you left, but to a new way of engaging, not on your terms, from your truth with your gifts. The world is waiting, not for you to be someone you're not, but for you to be exactly who you are. Carl Jung spent his life exploring the depths of human consciousness. His work was a love letter to people like you, those who feel everything deeply, who question everything, who seek meaning in a world that often offers only distraction. He would want you to know your sensitivity is not a curse. Your depth is not a flaw. Your difference is not a mistake. You're exactly what humanity needs, not despite your nature, but because of it. So if you've been hiding, take this as your sign. The retreat was necessary, but the return is calling. Come back, bring your wisdom, share your truth, be exactly who you are. We need you. If this video resonated with you, if you're an old soul woman who finally feels seen, do me a favor, don't just watch and leave. Take action. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and drop a comment sharing your experience. Let's build a community of depth in a shallow world. And if you know another old soul woman who needs to hear this, share it with her. Sometimes one message at the right time can change everything. Thank you for going deep with me today. Until next time, stay true to your soul.